Welcome to a new Paradigm of Education podcast. I'm your host, Monique Sayers. Today we have a very special guest with us. Her name is Nikki Farrell, and she's from the Wildlings Forest School. Before I go ahead and introduce Nikki, I'd just like to introduce our podcast for all our new listeners. So, a new paradigm of education is a co-creation in education. It's something that we've all been manifesting for eternity. It's something that we've all wanted to revolutionize and make changes for in the world, whether you're an educator, a parent, or even a student that has their own visions and ideas of how you'd like to be educated in the future. So this podcast brings together people from all across the world with all different visions, with all the same goal of creating a new way of education and serving humanity and its students for the highest of good. So Nikki, it's so lovely to have you here with us today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so nice to chat to other passionate education change makers because we've all got the same vision. Different visions, but it's the same ultimate goal. And I cannot
Exactly,
wait to
exactly.
talk about it.
I love your vision, Nikki. And before we go into your full vision, I think I'll just let our listeners know a bit about you. I came across Nikki through the Wildlings Forest School, where my daughter has been attending, and it's this amazing nature play school and much more, where the kids are just free flow and organically playing in the outdoors and in the dirt. So she's the co-creator of this school, the Wildlings Forest School, and also the Wildlings podcast. She's also an ex-high school teacher, an advocate for play for children and children's rights. And her vision is for more outdoor education, movement, autonomy, deeper connections for children. So that's just putting it briefly for people to get a snippet of who you are. But maybe we could start with that vision, Nikki. So this Wildlings Forest School, how did it come about?
Probably like a bunch of other people listening that I just felt unaligned and uncomfortable, I guess, teaching as a high school. I was English and PE. I started in outdoor rec years ago, and I think I saw the difference of children being outdoors and then moving to English, which I loved. I love reading books and I love writing, but then seeing what that looked like in a classroom where it felt like we were really stamping on people's creativity and really shrinking what we were expecting of children to really fit into this really tiny box, which not really healthy for creatives. And then seeing these boys in particular, these grown men, because in year 11 and 12, they're giants with beards and they're taller than you, kind of trapped and not really given these the responsibilities that they were more than capable of doing and being the humans they were able to be, and just almost rocking in their chairs with either boredom or frustration and just not being able to move. And of course, there's beautiful parts of teaching. I love being mentors and guides to children, but I felt like I was becoming more of a prison officer. And that might sound quite confronting if you're still in that system. And I get that because I've been out of it for a long time now, so I've been able to reflect on it much more and sit with that and sit with my role as well. But anyway, to cut a long story short, I met Vicky, my business partner, at a play group that I thought was going to be too hippie for me. And we hit it off, and we realized we had really similar educational values and that we needed and something different for our own children. And I think that's what really resonated with me was when I had my own child, I suddenly went, I don't think I want this for my own child. And that rang huge alarm bells. It's that if it's not good enough for my child, it shouldn't be good enough for anyone. And so what could I do about that? I'm not very good at sitting still and putting up with systems. I'm not very good at sitting with the status quo. So we would try to find our way through it. And we found it really hard. We found all of these red tape and paperwork and things that we needed to wade our way through legislation and regulations. But, we're teachers. We're good at paperwork. So we muddled our way through it, and we started Forest School. So we've got nature play groups and forest kindies and homeschool programs and holiday programs. But it started with one play group, and it just grew really organically from demand, because when people saw it, they realized they wanted it. And I think you can't be what you can't see. And parents often don't know what they're looking for their children until they see it as well. And when they saw it, they went, oh, that's it. That's what I've been looking for, and I didn't even know I was missing it. So we've been running for 6 years now, and we're running Brisbane as well now, and we've got the podcast and online courses and an online shop. And if you had have asked me 6 years ago, that whether I'd be here, I would have just laughed. I said, oh, no, 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 I'll be a teacher. I just couldn't see another way out of it. I couldn't see myself doing anything else. But now I'm here and I cannot imagine going back into a classroom again. So yeah, that's my journey.
Yeah, I really resonate with all that you're sharing. From from the mindset of a teacher and also a parent. My daughter at the moment is 6, and I'm also at that point of like, well, this is real. This is like, what do you want to offer her? What is it that she needs? What is it that other children need? And I really resonate with you saying like you're sitting in that classroom and feeling like, well, if this isn't right, well, what is? And then going through
Yeah.
that whole program of like, well, what do I do? How do I create it? But then at the same time, just trusting and knowing that it will unfold, and then meeting your business partner, and then starting with one small little concept of a play group or whatever it was, and letting it grow out. And that's so huge and so inspiring for so many of us to hear. And I know during the pandemic in particular, there was a huge revolution in education. It was so beautiful to see so many people just wanting to make changes, and so many people haven't returned. So many people are still at that point of like either joining with others or wanting to create themselves or just sitting there in the unknown. And so, what I love with your offerings is that you've actually landed that and done that. And that's just like so inspiring. Maybe
Thank
before we
you.
talk about your offerings, like what is the Forest School and all about the children's play and all this fun stuff that I just love because it's all just resonates so much with my heart. Maybe you could just share a little bit about one of your offerings. I know that I'm actually interested in as a teacher as well, where you actually support us in the business side of things, because I think that could be helpful as a starting point. Because I know many of us have these amazing ideas, but then it's like, oh my gosh, can I really do it?
Yeah. And I think so often our ideas fit in this gray zone. And I think that's the hardest part. I think if someone said to you, that idea sounds great, you fit into the early years setting, or you fit under out of school hours care, and here's the legislation. But so often what we do crosses all of those, the early years, the school years, the out of school hours care years, the holiday programs. So where do I fit in that? And what can I and can't I do? Can I drop off? What kind of training do I need? It can feel really overwhelming. And I think sometimes as teachers, we downplay our skill set. I think, well, I'm an English teacher, I can only teach English. But what I want to say to all of you educators listening out there right now is your skill set is so much broader than most other employees that I have ever worked with and seen, because you are people extraordinaires, you are paperwork and red tape extraordinaires. You're able to problem solve all the time, and you're able to think on your feet, because I don't know a single teacher that goes in every day and doesn't have to change their lesson plan or the way that they work with a child at the snap of their fingers. So you have the skill set to create your own business. I think what we sometimes need is just direction. So our Wild Business course is the direction of guiding you through the kind of programs that you might want to run with children or adults, where you might fit within that legislation for your state and for your sector, because you might fall under outdoor rec, or you might fall under education, or you might fall under school camps or something different again, and then helping you navigate all that red tape to get the result that you want. You don't need to set up something like Wildlings Forest School. It could be, we've got people doing yoga businesses, we've got people doing school camps, we've got people doing really holistic, really new earth kind of programs that are running as well. And it is so exciting for me to see this huge range of businesses, and all they really needed help with was navigating business within the children education sector, really, and making sure you've got all your policies and your paperwork and your insurances and your risk assessments. So that's what our Wild Business course does. And it's such a great community, because it's just full of people like us that are like, I want this, I can see it, I can taste it, I can feel it. I just need to do this really boring businessy part. And I'd love to get help with this so that I can then chase that vision and I can get that going, because we are all change makers and we are all visionaries and creatives. And that's what we're really good at, and working with children and people. So sometimes we just need our hands held through that business part. So it is, I think the people that are coming through our course are going to change the face of education, because the more of us that there are out there doing these things, the more parents are going to start questioning the school system and going, why aren't we doing this in school? this should be a part of every child's education, whether it's we've got some people that are focused on relationships, some are doing well-being, some are doing mental health, some are doing, oh, it's just incredible. If I could wrap them all up and gift every child what all of these creators are creating, I think we would have happier, healthier children and families. So yeah, it's an exciting offering because of the people in it.
It's amazing. It really just gave me goosebumps, and it made me feel into, well, what is a new paradigm of education? This is a new paradigm. This is it. It's community. It's people collaborating. So you may have somebody who's great at yoga and somebody who wants to do mental health, all coming together and creating something together, or in your sectors of serving community. And I really see the broader vision of a new paradigm is where all these subsectors or yeah, subsectors is the word, where all of that dissipates, and it's just this energy of us like serving and leading organically with what the children are needing and what we need as well, because we also need to look after ourselves as well. You know, it's important that we are in a good state and we're able to embody that state to be able to serve. So I'm so excited to be endeavoring that with you as part of the business school. So thank you so much for that. I have so many questions because I love following Wildlings Forest School. Did you want to say something? Yeah.
I was just going to say that really resonated when you said we need to look after ourselves as educators too. I think so often, sometimes illness or things manifest in us and we might not be able to pick what that is. And sometimes I think it's feeling unaligned, or that you're working within systems that don't feel quite right. And that will look very different for different people, whether that's values or systems or whatnot. But I think when you can create your own creation that is so aligned with your values and your belief systems, and what is best for children, the abundance that comes from that is so different to the abundance when you're stuck in a system that, while it's purposeful because you're still helping children in a way, it may not be completely aligned. It's just, I've never taught like this before. I've never seen children flourish like this before. I've never been in a work environment like this before. And the benefits to not just the children, but our wider community, the ripple effect from that is just astounding. And I just want that for more children and families, because I've seen it now and I know that it can be, and I want more people to be able to feel what I'm feeling. So it is good for educators too.
I can feel that. It's heart-centered education. You know, as Gandhi says, leading with the hands, head, and the heart. And so many other greats have always been saying that. And it's finally happening. It's finally real. Like more and more people are like waking up. And as you wake up, there's no way back. And the only way to go is forward from there and to lead through the heart. And I had that feeling when you just shared about that, of my own heart expanding and this kind of softening into the earth and the ground, and just feeling like myself there as the bearer for the children, and they're able to then rise up into their greatness. And then from there it does ripple out, and this is how it begins. Like, this is the stepping stones, and then imagining the next generations and the next generations what education will look like if it's already starting to look this way. It's just such an empowering vision. It's amazing.
It's incredible to think, isn't it, in 10 or 20 years time, where our children's children will be education wise, like the choices they will have that our children are only just starting to see snippets of. I cannot wait to see it.
Yeah, and that actually brings me to a question that I hadn't planned to ask, but I'm going to go there because we're talking about evolution and also talking about expansion. And what I've seen in current mainstream classrooms is a use of technology that's dangerous. It's dangerous for mental health and for so many things. And what I really love about your program is that you're giving the children a chance to step away from that, to unplug from that, and just to get back into the old way of learning, you know, without all of that. Would you like to just expand on what I'm sharing?
Yeah, and it's funny, I'm just going with whatever's taking my brain today. But when you said that, I pictured the grandparents that come to our programs and the joy on their faces when they see their grandchildren experiencing what they experienced in their childhood. So there's this full circle. They are so happy to see their grandchildren off of screens and living life. And that's not to say that, children aren't making connections in some way on some of their programs and devices. I think there can be said that there's some benefits at some times, but I think the way that screens have just invaded all areas of our life. And at schools, when preppies need iPads, And, in high school, our high school students are on their devices for every single lesson, unless they're pretty much doing sport, or even in sport and art. If they're not doing the very practical sections of those practical subjects, they're on their devices. So, I think the average screen hours for a teenager at the moment is 11 hours a day. They've got to sleep
Wow.
for 8, but that
Wow.
doesn't leave many. And I don't care if that's for education or not. That's not how we're meant to be biologically. We're meant to be looking out on the horizon, looking. We're hunters and gatherers still. Like, we have not evolved that far yet that this is the normal for our bodies. We need to be grounded in the earth with our bare feet. When we look at all the reasons that our children have a higher level of mental health issues, we can't blame just screens, but we can blame being sedentary, plus screens, plus not being barefoot, plus the food that we're eating, plus, there's a lot of things that we can, I don't want to use the word control, but that we can show children other ways that make them feel good. And that's what I love about our programs, is that sometimes it's a real slap in the face for parents and educators when they come down and they see their children in the forest. We have had this so many times. I've never seen my child so calm. I've never seen my child so engaged. And we constantly get like, this is the best day ever, which is so great for me. But I also think nature's free. Like, why aren't these children experiencing this outside of our programs? And I'm so glad that they can. I'm so glad there's a place that they can come and experience those things, particularly when you're new to a community. Like, we're such a great way for people to build community. But we have a huge demographic of children here in Australia on the Sunshine Coast that have never felt mud before, that have never climbed a tree before, that have never walked in a forest. And people don't believe me when I say that, but it's not just a once off. It's a regular thing that we get, particularly when the school groups come down. And I think, what are we doing to our children that going to school is not allowing them to see these things and feel these things? That's not education to me. So I'm just so happy that we are able to provide these spaces. But what I would love to see is for this to actually be in our schools and early year settings as well. So that's our bigger goal, is with our wild skills training, is to be educating educators on how to bring this more into their settings, because we are really privileged in Australia. We've got magnificent school settings with beautiful big grounds, and they're not all concrete jungles. So, and often we're quite close to parks or beaches and within walking distance, but we don't leave the gate. So, yeah, I would love to slowly try and change that system as well.
I
So,
love
yeah,
that
fingers
vision
crossed.
as well. I love that vision where yeah, we're in nature, we're in bush. Why not just be in there, half a day and then the other half just doing something else or whatever it is. And what I really love about your programs also is that rain, hail, or shine that you're on. And like one of the programs I went to one day, it was like bucketing down. It was like relentless. And I was just there going, oh my gosh, what have I got myself in for? I love nature. I'm always in the ocean. I'm always doing this. I'm always doing that. And then there was this rain and this thing of like me, oh, I need an umbrella. And then I got there and I was like, what are you doing? Have a great time. And we just had the best day. It was like really mystical and magical. And the children loved it. They were stomping around. And I love that philosophy that you also share.
It can be really hard. We do, I'll be honest, we do lose families to it. Not because of the children, because of the parents. And I get that. Like, we're so overworked and overburdened and time poor. The last thing we often want to do is sit in a forest with a wet bottom and get wet. But often the parents that stay are the parents that change their mindset and look at it and go, when do I get out in the rain? And when do I get out in the rain with the children? And when have I been in a forest in the rain with my children, sitting around a campfire or playing in puddles with friends? And one of the main reasons we do that is so that children don't see wet weather or cold weather as a bad day. Because if you only go outside on perfect fair weather days, then you're missing half of the beautiful days to go outside in the world. And I just think, like you said, when you said that, it was so mystical and magical. It is. The forest is a completely different place when it rains. And if we don't go out and we don't see that, we miss out. And I think we so often miss out because we are uncomfortable. And I think as a generation, many of us have forgotten how to feel uncomfortable and sit in it and sit with those feelings. And whether we flip our mindset or whether we even just sit with them and go, that was not enjoyable. I didn't like having wet underwear, but I'm okay. And it builds that resilience, right? We're always talking about we want our children to be resilient. Well, this is how we give it to them. They're safe, they're warm, there's a fire, there's hot chocolate. They're not going to die by getting wet. But what they will do is grow that like sitting in discomfort. And that's really important to us because a little rain won't hurt, but they will go through things in their life, no matter who they are and who they've grown up with, that they'll have to sit in big, deep, uncomfortable feelings. And this is why we can give this to them in micro doses in really safe spaces that they can grow into. So yeah, all weather it's bigger than just a wet day in the mud. Hey, it's a bigger concept. And I love that we can do that in a really fun way.
Yeah, it's really important what you shared about the social emotional aspect, because I just had this vision of the children in the classrooms kind of feeling like isolated, like they're sort of sitting at a desk within their own comfort zone and they're just in that place. Whereas when they're outside, whether it be raining or not, there's this kind of disorder. So people are kind of crossing paths with each other, and there's like this kind of confrontation of a child facing another child, or then playing around together, or maybe they even have a fight, and maybe they don't, maybe they get on. But all of that, I think, is something that needs to be taught, like what you were sharing about resilience. And how do they get that exposure if they're not exposed to it? Like if they're just sitting within this little kind of comfort bubble and just being quiet and playing it safe, they're not getting that full exposure. And then maybe when it does play out in another situation, it could be more overwhelming for them than a little bit of rain, right?
Yeah, and so often, in a school, they only get the chance to do that in the playground, and quite often there's not enough adult supervision. They're always supervised. Like, I'm not saying teachers are doing a bad job at that, but teachers have got so many children to supervise on lunch duty that they can't see all the social things that are going on, and they can't help children guide and work through those difficult social situations all the time. And I think when a lot of our programs, so people know, we have parents attend, they're not all drop off. And one of the reasons we've chosen to do that is so that there's adults there to help children guide through these social situations, because we need that. And school is often only the same grade. You sit with them all day, people of the exact same age. And the only mentor you have is your one teacher. And you hope you get along with that teacher and that they have a respectful relationship and not a super authoritarian relationship. So, and that they're not gaslighting you when you come with a social situation. Oh, you'll be fine. It's just girls being girls, or, I think these are big deals. A lot of these social situations are a big deal for children. And when they have adults, whether it's their parent or not, it might be one of our team members, it might be another parent saying, oh, that's a really tricky situation, isn't it? It might feel a bit uncomfortable, or how do you think we might try and navigate this, and playing through and role playing some scenarios and giving them some options that feel safe for them to go and then try and navigate themselves. But know that there's an adult around should it get too hard or overheated or whatnot. So we have children and families come to the forest for the fire skills and the whittling with the pocket knives, but the learning is that social emotional learning. And that's why I believe children flourish down there. I think people think they're growing because they're doing these risky skills, but I actually think it's because they have the time and the space and the mentors to guide them through the social and emotional learning. So yeah, we're a bit of it's a pretense, isn't it? These great, cool, fun, risky things, but really it's all about relationships, because that's what life is. Life is all about relationships, and you can't be a happy, healthy citizen if you aren't surrounded with a healthy support network. So we're trying to help children know what a healthy relationship looks like and how to navigate those that might be a bit trickier. So yeah, I love it. I love being able to guide children through that, because I never had the time as an English teacher in high school to sit with the girl that had just broken up with her boyfriend and talk about, maybe it's a good thing, maybe he was actually a bit toxic. What does a red flag look like? What red flags were you seeing? I didn't have the time to sit with my students, and now I do. Yeah, and I just am so grateful I can sit and be that safe person as well, and have the time to be that safe person.
That's amazing. I love what you shared about that. And I also had the vision of also that the forest in itself is the teacher, because there's a lot of wisdom in there, and there's a lot of regulation that can happen naturally just by being in that environment as well.
Yeah. How do you feel when you come down there?
Oh, I love it. I'm in heaven. Like it's my perfect ideal type of teaching for me, that it represents what I believe is the new paradigm, because really
Mm.
it's conscious community coming together. As you're saying, the parents and the educators and the children are all holistic, all together as one, which definitely breaks away of the hierarchy, which is the new paradigm of education is free of all of that. It allows movement, freedom, choices, creation. So I personally feel really, really peaceful down there. I know my daughter loves it, and I
Mm.
know she goes wild, and I know at sometimes she's also mucked up and had tantrums and had to face things, but that's all part of the learning. And I'm really grateful to be held there, like to be held in that space,
Mm.
to be doing it and to be present with her as well. That's such a gift, like me as a parent walking in there. I mean, I'm lucky I'm a teacher as well. I get to see children and be with children, but myself gifting
Mm.
that to myself and my child to show up together and learn it together and
Yeah.
break through stuff. That's what I love about it.
We get so many parents come down, they book originally for their children and then they come back because they know that, oh, I love coming here. I love, and sometimes it's just the forest or other times it's the community, but they've realized that it's time and space for them too. And definitely it's time and space for them with their child. But it is, when you said the forest holds you and the forest is its own, I feel that so deeply in that, with that new paradigm, is that we are just animals. And when we put us all, we containerize our children, whether that's in our houses or their bedrooms and the cars and then the classrooms. We're not meant to be in four walls 24/7. And I think when we walk into a forest in a setting like that where there's community, we can feel that palpable sense of home or homecoming, because it's just a return, right? It's not new, it's a
Mm.
return. And I've always found it hard to kind of label that. So I think that's when people come, it's like, this is what it could or would have been like once upon a time. And I remember that. And I think that's really, really calming and nurturing for your nervous system. Everyone feels really regulated in that space. Even when they're going through big things, it is like you're being held. That's when you said that, I'm like, it does hold you. Yeah. So
I
thanks
love
for
it.
bringing that up. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And also, you mentioned stuff about risky play and adventure play, and I'd really
Mm.
love you to share more about that, because I know that was something that's new for myself, to be
Mm.
allowing that to happen. Risky play, really? Like, so I'd love to hear a bit more about that.
Yeah, so we do. Children cook over fire. They learn to strike with fire strikers, magnesium strikers. They learn to whittle with pocket knives. And I think when I say this, people are picturing teenagers, but children as young as, well, as soon as they show interest, we don't just give 30 children a pocket knife and say, good luck. We have safety briefings and we demonstrate it first, and then we sit with them for a little bit and we make sure they know how to open and close the knives or use the fire striker safely. And obviously, we've got a lot of parents around as well. So that's one of the ways we maintain our ratio so that it is really safe. I saw huge amounts of more injuries at schools with fields and monkey bars and playgrounds than I ever have down in our forest in the 6 years we've been down there, because children take that responsibility really seriously. They're so grateful to be trusted with something that they see as an adult task. But back in the day, if we look at anthropology, we grew up in villages and the children would just follow what the adults did, and they were mentored and guided. But a lot of that was through observation. And we've kind of lost that. The blacksmith's son became a blacksmith. I'm not saying every child should be what their parents were, but we're giving children the tools to try it out and see if they like it. But the main reason we do it is so that they can also learn to risk assess for themselves, because I feel like in schools, we don't give children really any responsibility. And then all of a sudden, as teenagers, they get their license, suddenly they can drink, they've got boyfriends and girlfriends, and they can leave the house on their own with no guidance when they've been brought up with the same age group the whole way through. And then suddenly they're all with the same age peers, testing out these risks all at the same time, when that risk assessment part of their brain also happens to disappear. It's a bit
Mm,
of a recipe for disaster.
mm.
So our aim again with the risky play is that they get to A, be trusted by adults and guided and mentored by them, but B, they learn to risk assess for themselves while they're young, and why their risk assessment part is in their brain, because they actually have better risk assessment skills when they're younger than they do when they're teenagers.
Oh.
And then, yeah, it disappears literally when they're about between 14 and 16, particularly boys. It's mainly in boys. their synapses disappear
Oh,
for risk assessment, and then they rewire them, which is great. It does come back. So if you're currently here and your 14 or 15-year-old boy has just become somebody else, it's not them. Their brain is just rewiring. But if you haven't done that work beforehand, and then suddenly we're giving them the keys and the alcohol and the freedom, it can be really scary, and they may not know how to risk assess. They may not have built those pathways early. So what you want when they're rebuilding those pathways is to have somewhere for them to be looking, I guess, heading towards. So our children are so great at risk assessing. So instead of saying be careful now as well, I go, what's your plan there? And quite often I am shocked. They've made a plan. They know exactly what they're doing and where they're going and how they're going to do it. And I go, oh gosh, in my head, I wouldn't have risk assessed that carefully. They're more careful than I would have been. So giving them those tools and practicing those things, but it also gives them this huge, huge boost of self-confidence and bodily autonomy. Adults really control children's bodies, whether that's how they dress, where they go, when they go to the toilet, when they eat, when they go to bed. So giving them freedom to use these riskier tools allows them to get to know their bodies better, whether that's climbing trees or balancing over logs or using the whittling knives. They get to feel what feels safe and what doesn't. And we talk them through that. You're climbing your tree. What is your body telling you right now? Because don't listen to your body or my body, because we have different levels of risk and different experiences and different physical abilities. What is your body telling you? And so many children don't get the opportunity to listen to their bodies. They're not taught to listen to their bodies. And we say, where are you feeling that? Oh, I'm feeling it in my heart. Okay, what is it? Is it thumping? Is it racing? Oh, I'm feeling it in my belly. I feel like I need to go to the toilet. Or in my bladder, I feel like I need to go to the toilet. Okay, so what does that mean to you? Because that might mean something different to me as well. That racing might mean, oh, I'm excited. I want to go higher. Or it might be, oh, my belly's saying, don't go any higher. Okay, well, you can come down. That's enough for you. That's great. Look how far you got for you. And so we try and pull that comparison away too, because in schools we so often grade and compare, but we don't when a child is, learning to walk or talk. We go, ah, you're learning to walk and talk. How wonderful for you that that's happening for you now. And then suddenly at 5 and 6, we're grading them and oh, you should be reading by now. Well, why? How do you know that his brain is ready to be doing that right now? So we try and pull apart that wiring. And same with the failure. We really encourage children to be scientists and to experiment. You're not failing. You're learning from your experiment. That's all. The iPhone wasn't built in a day. A car wasn't built in a day. No one would have called the first car a failure. And it wasn't even a mistake. That was a learning experience. So everything that you're doing is a learning experience. Because again, when you're graded on something and you're told that you're failing and failing and failing at it, children take that on board and they think that they're not smart. They think that they're dumb. Whereas we try and flip that in forest school and say, oh, your bow and arrow broke. Oh, that sucks. That must really, really be upsetting for you because you put so much effort into it. It's okay. We've got time. We've got time and space here to make another one. How can we make it stronger? It's not a failure. And they're so intrinsically motivated that they go ahead and they learn all the things that we couldn't teach them in a textbook anyway. So, we say it's risky play and people freak out about it. But again, really, it's about not comparing. It's about learning that failures are just learning experiences. It's about letting children work at their own pace. And it's about letting them hear their body talk to themselves and letting them risk assess for themselves so that when they're teenagers, they can make good decisions for themselves and their friends. So by helping them be safe when they're younger, we help them be safer when they're older, when we're not there to guide them.
Yeah, wow, that was amazing what you've just shared. They're all so important and necessary and for the leaders of the world, these new little leaders that we have just right there. If they don't want to be a leader, if they don't like that word, that's okay. But just for the new people that are becoming, going to be out there in the world, the citizens. I love what you're sharing. And yeah, who would have thought that question had led to all of those answers that you've just given me? I feel really inspired. I'm like, wow, there's just so much.
I'm a bit passionate about it.
I have nothing more to add. Like, I'm just going to leave it with what you shared and just say wow to that. That leads me to another question, which I always ask all of our guests that come on, and it's always the same question. So, what is your vision for a new paradigm of education?
Ooh, that children are trusted, and that children are trusted to, and I'd hate even using the word develop, to grow at the pace that they need to grow at, because nobody knows their story. Nobody knows the families they're coming from, the backgrounds, the poverty, or the opposite. You know, they might be way ahead. They may be gifted and talented, but they may be gifted and talented in areas that aren't in school. Like, who's to say that somebody being a jeweler isn't as important as somebody going out and being a lawyer? We need art. Humans need art and creativity in their lives. So my vision is that children can follow their interests and be trusted to know what they're interested in, and to be told that what they're interested in is important. And that's as simple as that. And that might not seem very forest schooly, but ultimately forest school is child directed, not just led. We're not led by the child, it is directed by children. And yes, we put down invitations and provocations, but we don't make anyone sit and do a bow and arrow or sit and fire strike if they don't want to. They can just sit in the forest and be, or draw, or talk with friends and play imaginary games. So we trust that when children come to the forest, that they are getting what they need and they are meeting their needs. And if they aren't, that we hope that they come to us and ask for what they need as well. So through nature, really what we're hoping is that children are seen as humans. Really, if it comes down to it, is really as simple as that.
Wow, that's so powerful. Through nature, children are seen as humans. That's so powerful. Thank you so
Mm.
much for sharing your vision. And I know that your vision is our vision. Everybody who's listening, it's the same vision that we all have for our children. We just want them to be connected and to be able to grow up into the best that they can be without being conformed in the way of the what we call the old paradigm. And I just love meeting people like yourself, Nikki, that have come onto our podcast, and all of our listeners, even who are also gathering their ideas. You're all part of this wave of change of education. So I thank you so much for coming on today, Nikki.
Thank you for holding the space for these big conversations. You know, earlier I said you can't be what you can't see, and you were giving this platform to these ideas and change makers and programs that other people can then see that are visionaries. And sometimes you just need that little nudge. So thank you for holding space for people to speak about their little projects. Shouldn't say little, they're big, huge projects that are making change, because we need it. We need these spaces so that we know we're not alone. So thank you for being our community as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and it can be little. Like, I think sometimes it can be overwhelming. So even just taking a little step, like listening to a podcast or just reading an article, is a step. Talking to somebody is a step. And then eventually it may become a program. Maybe it won't. Maybe it just be a creation with somebody, or you may just show up to forest school. It's all part of it, isn't
Yeah.
it? You know, and how could people reach you if they want to join the forest school or your business school?
Yeah, thank you. We're at wildlingsforestschool.com. If you're looking for our courses, we're actually under raisingwildlings.com.au, because that's the name of our podcast. We decided to split, but I'm kind of regretting it, because we're multifaceted beings, right? And I think we thought we needed to separate ourselves from our different offerings. But really, what I've realized is that I'm allowed to have different interests and navigate different ideas and projects. So that's where it is at the moment, but that may change. But we are on Facebook and Instagram, but always just flick us an email. We're often in the forest, but we will get back to you.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing we're trying to change too, that you don't need to work 9 to 5. You don't need to be reachable all the time as well. And businesses also don't need to be. We can run businesses differently so that we don't burn out as well, because I think being responsible for these kind of programs can be a weight of responsibility. And so we need to be able to look after ourselves as well. And that can look different. And people are actually, the response we get, people really appreciate that we are doing things differently, again, because we're, I guess, modeling what can be. So follow what works for you. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't work for other people, because people will come. I think, you know, the old build it and they'll come. That's exactly it. I swear to God, when people see it and they get that, that they'll come no matter what your program is. There are other people out there looking for it. They just haven't seen it yet. So yeah, please start, take the baby step.
Thank you so much. That's so beautiful. It's just coming back to that heart and just going with that heart guidance. stepping into that. So thank you again for coming on New Paradigm of Education. And I look forward to coming back into the Wildlings Forest School again with my daughter. It's just such a beautiful, fun day to play together. So you can also check out all the links in the place below if you wanted to see Nikki. And thank you to all our listeners today for coming on to the podcast with us, because as I said before, you're also part of this journey of a new paradigm of education. Thank you.